Welcome back to another video, my friends. I feel like a lot of my videos recently have been kind of depressing because they're about the struggles that I have. And so this one, I just wanted to make it a happy one where I'm reflecting on how far I've come and just talking a little bit about my journey and how much I've changed in the past couple of years. I just hope that this video gives you motivation to be able to see what it's like coming out on the other side. I am in no way done with healing. I feel like healing is like a rest of your life type of journey, but I do think that I've came a long way and I've changed a lot, and I would really like to share that with you guys because the world is not all just negative things and full of trauma and darkness. I also just want to say that you can always start small. It's more important to just start somewhere and then you can build up to something that's bigger. So I want to start with a big one that I'm sure a lot of people who have been through trauma has experienced, and that is feeling tired all the time and also not being able to understand why you're sick sometimes or why you have certain pains in your body and you can't see, the doctors can't seem to figure out what's wrong with you. When I was in high school, I was tired all the time. That is probably sometimes due to the lack of sleep. But at the same time, I also knew that there was some underlying problems that I didn't really understand. I would go to the doctors and every year they'd tell me I'm healthy. So I really didn't understand why I was so tired all the time. I went on this trip once with my friends and we got a ton of sleep. I was sleeping my solid 8 to 10 hours each night. And I remember we had an activity the next day and I was just exhausted after an hour or two of getting up. I just remember my friend was like, I feel like you're tired all the time. And I was like, you're right, but I don't really know what the problem is. I just could not go about life without feeling like my body was just working against me and that I was just physically tired all the time and that I needed to sleep. And some of you guys might know about the body keeps the score. When you do have trauma stored in your body, it does attack your immune system because you're constantly in the state of stress. And so when I had ton of trauma, I was just trying to hold everything in. My immune system was unable to defend off these simple bacteria. At the same time, I didn't have the energy to because my body was so busy spending time processing these things that were just stored in my body but not happening in my life. I think it makes it really hard to progress in life when you can't be productive. When I first started healing, I remember I just had this journal session for myself and cried out some of the trauma, and the tears came out. In the moment, it felt really bad. Thankfully, I did that journal session right before I went to bed. So afterwards, I just knocked out and woke up so light the next day. I have felt that ever since. I've done a very productive journal session. I don't do it on purpose because I don't think the goal is to make yourself cry every time, but I do feel when I'm just allowing myself to feel these emotions without judgment, I feel so much better when I cry and just take a short nap and wake up. Sometimes though, I feel when I do have a really good journal session and I cry it out, I'm very emotionally fragile that day or the next day because you just let so much of this energy out of your system, and now it's the body is still processing and healing and getting back to the original state. I honestly feel lighter than I've ever felt in my life. Even when I am depressed, I understand that there are so many things that I can do in order to help me feel lighter again. That same level of heaviness does not exist in my body anymore. And I just want to emphasize how much that has changed my life, because then I can be more productive, I can be more active. And when you can do that, you feel so much better about yourself. This kind of leads to my second point of how healing my trauma has really changed my life. And that's me having a much higher self-esteem. I also learned to start setting boundaries and showing respect to myself and giving myself self-care. I learned to prioritize myself, and all of those things helped me really boost my self-esteem and see myself for who I really am, because I feel most of my life I've been conditioned to think these super extremely negative things about myself. When I learned to set boundaries and respect my own feelings, respect my anger, in the last video, I really started to see myself differently. I realized how important I was as a person and how important I was to myself, because I feel when you grow up with toxic parents, you give up so much of yourself. and you've abandoned yourself for so long that your self-esteem is basically non-existent. In my life, I haven't really gotten what I deserved as a child, what I deserved as a daughter, what I deserved just as a human. When you start understanding, wow, this is what I deserve, the type of treatment that I deserve in life from other people, from myself, your self-esteem just like goes through the roof, because you start setting boundaries and you understand like, this is how it's supposed to be. I don't need to be getting terrible treatment from other people. I don't need to be in a toxic relationship. I get to choose to cut off people who choose not to treat me the way that I deserve. It's not easy. I had to cut off so many people in my life. When I feel that inner peace, I know that it's the right decision to make. I know that when I spend time with people who don't treat me the way that I deserve, my self-esteem really goes down the drain. It's not always your fault. That's something that I had to learn, because when you're a child who has taken responsibility for so many things that you're not supposed to be responsible for, it's very easy to internalize it and blame yourself for something that someone else does. And so you have to almost start making other people take accountability for their actions and then doing something about it. If someone is not willing to take accountability for their actions of hurting you, then maybe that person shouldn't be in your life, and it's 100% not your fault. It has nothing to do with your own self-esteem if someone chooses to leave your life because they can't act properly. I feel like I'm so used to giving people chances that when it comes to actually ending it with people, it's a lot harder and it's really uncomfortable. But I also do know that like, if I want to maintain my own sense of identity and help myself and help my own self-esteem, then it is necessary for me to do. The next change in my life that I've noticed was I've had more fulfilling and healthier relationships. Something that's very common with people who have experienced trauma is that there's a lot of emotional isolation and you feel extremely lonely growing up, or just extremely lonely while you're going through this traumatic event. And there's also that feeling of like, no one will understand me. No one understands like what I've gone through. The best way to go about that feeling is opening your mouth and talking about your experiences. I also learned to communicate with people in that sense, because I had to open my mouth and say like, oh, this is something that I've gone through. I felt this way about it and I'm still processing it, and it's been really hard. I've also learned to tell like people in my life, oh, I act this way because I've went through something like this, and they're able to understand you more. I always try to like be better about it if it's something that affects other people. It's good to at least be able to communicate to people, oh, I do this because I've experienced this before and I'm working on it and I'm hopefully trying to be better. It's never easy to share something that's traumatic that has happened to you. When I tell other people about my experiences, it's very healing, because I can see how my friends, sometimes my siblings, they feel closer to me and they can bring me up and support me. I don't dump on people. Like, I don't just tell everybody everything all at once, but more just like sharing like, hey, I used to experience this and this is what I'm doing to kind of cope with that, or like understand myself better. This is what I'm doing to self-care. There's a difference between like sharing your experiences and telling people like, oh, you've experienced this, versus like just dumping and just telling everybody everything, because that's draining. Like, it's not as productive for your healing if you're just like dumping on other people. It was really hard for me in the beginning because I felt like people were gonna see me a certain type of way if I told them about my experiences. But I started realizing that if I don't allow those experiences to define who I am, then it's okay to talk about it. I think the biggest thing about feeling your trauma and talking about it is the shame part. Telling my friends and telling my siblings has helped me overcome a lot of the shame, because I wasn't judged when I said what I said out loud. I stopped feeling so alone because I felt like I was supported in the things that I went through. You'd be very surprised when you start talking about your experiences, how many other people are like, yeah, I've felt some type of like experience that's similar to that, or I've felt that feeling too. I really think that it just helps you be less alone, and it brings you closer with those people, because when you're experiencing this trauma and you have all this trauma within you, it is so isolating. And when you're also a people pleaser, it's really hard for you to like say what your needs are in a relationship. But when I built these healthier relationships with people and I knew that my friends were not going to judge me, it was a lot easier for me to express my needs out loud. That kind of takes away a lot of resentment, because I know that like when you haven't been taken care of for so long, whether it be emotionally or physically, there's so much resentment on like why the world sucks, and you feel all alone and you feel like you've had to bring yourself up this whole time. So after I started healing my trauma, the fourth thing that I noticed in my life was that I started doing things that I would have never done before. I started seeing more opportunities in my life. And I think it's because I stopped letting my trauma define who I am. When you have so much trauma in your life and you experience all these negative things in your life, it's very easy to think of yourself as a broken person. You stop seeing yourself as someone who's capable of doing things that you would have never done. When I started healing my trauma, I was able to recognize how much conditioning went into me believing that I was not a good enough person. I started encouraging myself to do new things and to try stuff that I never thought I would try. And when you try things that you never thought you would try, you get to meet all these other people who are like, hey, do you want to try this? Do you want to try that? And so it became a snowball effect where I just started doing things that like I never would have done and just pushed myself out of my boundaries and experience life more. I really feel like when I do things that I never would have done, I get to feel like, okay, life is worth living. And when you're stuck in this cycle of like low self-esteem and feeling ashamed of like who you are, it's really hard to go out and put yourself out there. I also learned to support myself in things that were uncomfortable, and I interviewed for stuff and like applied for things that I didn't think I would get, but I was like, you know what, like I'm worth this shot. I got to be a brand ambassador for Monster energy drink. It was so fun for me because I got to like talk to all these different people. I got to connect with different organizations through Monster energy drink. I didn't even expect an interview, but when it happened, I was like, you know what, I'm just gonna go into this and just be myself, like voice why I want to be a brand ambassador. For me, that experience was so worth it, and it's something that I won't forget. I felt a lot of pride in something that I did and gave myself that shot. If you think that there's something that you want to try, go ahead and try it. Don't be afraid of the rejection. Apply for that internship. You just never know what's going to happen on the other end. So just shoot your shot. This last thing is so important for someone who's experienced so much like inner turmoil and just like dysfunction in their life. The one thing that I noticed was that I started feeling moments of peace and I started feeling okay again. I even started feeling moments of like pure joy when I would be like walking around campus and I was just like exploding with happiness of like, this is my life. Like, I love this, despite the fact that like I was still a broke college student and like I still had all these past experiences. Healing my trauma, I just felt like I had so much more room to feel okay. Because at one point I was praying to God for not happiness. I just wanted like a moment of peace where I didn't feel like I was messing up, or I didn't feel like I was just in a cloud of darkness. And I wanted that so bad growing up. Happiness wasn't even in my mind because I was like, I'm so far into this like darkness that all I want is like this little bit of light. And I just wanted to feel okay for just like a little bit. I want to like emphasize this so much because at the time I wanted more out of my life. And that's why I started, because I was like, I'm sick of living and feeling like a loser. There has to be something that I can do. And like, I'm stuttering because I'm getting so passionate about it. I want you to know that you can do this for yourself. It is possible to feel that peace that you've been longing for so long. You deserve that. You deserve to feel okay. Like, despite any type of abuse that you've gone through, despite any like crazy experiences, despite you feeling like you have not felt okay in forever, and despite the fact that like you don't even think you deserve it, I'm here to say you deserve it. You deserve to feel okay. You deserve to feel like life is worth living for. I make my videos because I want people to understand life doesn't just suck, and it's not gonna suck forever. If you put in the work, and it's not fair, like I know it's not fair, but if you choose to put in the work, maybe even a little bit at a time, it is so worth it, and you'll get there. And I've decided like I'm going to put myself out there because I want other people to understand your life does not have to suck forever. And that's the thing that has like absolutely changed me, because for the longest time I was just like, I don't think I could feel okay. I started feeling that. I felt moments of it at a time. In the beginning, it wasn't all the time. And then there were times where I like felt it for weeks, and then I felt it for months. And then I was like life doesn't have to be that hard. Yes, I still have struggles, and like I've had so many struggles that I've overcome, and I know I'll have a lot of struggles in the future. But I've also realized my life has improved so much. It makes your life so much better. I felt like I've sat in the victim mindset for so long, and I know that I've been mistreated, and I know that I've been a victim of trauma and abuse. I truly, truly just want people to live a better life. And I feel like I have all these answers and I want to share them with you guys. So I'm going to keep doing that, and I want to keep making videos. Please comment if you feel like something has resonated with you, and subscribe if you want to learn more about how you can overcome this and just create a better life for yourself.